association, even though I can't see you, but nice to have your association, virtually speaking. We can see Shashwin. He always looks very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So wonderful to be with you all. So we will chant 7. Huh? Yeah, we can see Shal now as well. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll chant 7, 9 together, and then we'll look back a little bit and connect this verse with the flow in this chapter, and then we'll look at the purport and discuss. Okay, so I say, you say. Punya ganda pratityam cha.
Punya gandha pratityam
cha.
Tejas chasmi vidavashu.
Tejas chasmi vidavashu.
Jivanam sarvabhuteshu.
Jivanam sarvabhuteshu.
Tapaschasmi tapavishnu.
Tapaschasmi tapavishnu.
Okay, so the word for word is punyaha.
Punyaha.
Original. Gandaha. Fragrance. Pratitvam. In the earth. Cha. Also. Tejaha. Heat. Cha. Also. Asmi. I am. Vibhavashau. In the fire. Jivanam. Life. Sava. In all. Bhuteshu. Living entities. Tapaha. Penance. Cha. Also. Asmi. I am. Tapavishu. In those who practice penance. So this is the translation. I am the original fragrance of the earth. I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penance of ascetics. Please repeat, I am the original fragrance of the earth.
I am the original fragrance of the earth.
I am the heat in fire.
I am the heat and fire.
I am the life of all that lives.
I am the life of all that lives.
And I am the penances of all ascetics.
I am the penance of all ascetics.
So Krishna is describing in this verse how he is manifest in the material nature. Because we are not so advanced that we open our eyes, we don't see Krishna. Although Krishna is everywhere, we don't see. And since we're beginning our study of Bhakti Yoga in the 7th chapter, is the beginning of the Bhakti chapters 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're beginning. And therefore, it's not that we see Krishna so much. Krishna is everywhere, but we don't see that. But what we can see is we can see the material nature all around us. So Krishna is explaining how he can be seen in the material nature. In this verse, in the previous verse, and the next 2 also, Krishna is explaining how we can look into the material nature and we can perceive Krishna's presence. But I want to look back a little bit to the beginning of the chapter before we get into the purport, because the principal way of becoming an Ananya Bhakta, because that's what Krishna was saying at the end of the previous chapter, become an Ananya Bhakta, an unalloyed devotee. And that is done especially in the beginning by hearing about Krishna. We need to become that devotee who is completely absorbed in Krishna, always thinks of Krishna within himself and renders transcendental loving service. He is the topmost yogi. So we need to become a devotee like that. That is the conclusion of the yoga ladder, to become a bhakta, a devotee who is always thinking of Krishna within himself and is rendering transcendental loving service. So we need to become that bhakta. So how to do it? So Krishna explains beginning at the beginning of the 7th chapter. And especially Krishna says, you hear from me. Tachrinu. That is the principal way in the beginning to hear about Krishna. Because if we hear about Krishna, we begin to realize Krishna's greatness. No? But even though hearing about Krishna, we still have a little trouble perceiving him. He's present everywhere, but we have trouble perceiving. So Krishna is going to give us some clues in this chapter. So in the first verse, that's what Krishna is saying. Now here, Tachrinu, that is the principal method of getting to know about Krishna. And this, after all, we are studying the knowledge of the absolute. Krishna is the absolute truth. And therefore, to get knowledge about Krishna, we have to hear, but not just from anybody. Arjuna was fortunate that he heard directly from Krishna. And by studying the conversation, we can also hear directly from Krishna. And also, Krishna's pure devotee, in the form of Srila Prabhupada, is helping us to understand these verses through his purports. So we're doubly blessed. We can hear directly from the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, and Srila Prabhupada is on hand to explain it to us. So we are doubly blessed. So now hear, O son of Prita, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me. That is our goal. Not just to practice yoga, but to do it in full consciousness of Krishna, in full knowledge, with mind attached to me. No, because that's the goal. Our mind is going to be attached to something. It has to be attached to something. But the thing is to attach it to Krishna, not to the material things. That is our goal. So how to practice yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, then we can know Krishna in full, without any doubt. Right now we have some doubts. Is Krishna really the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Will he really answer my prayers? No. So Krishna is giving the methodology, how we become completely convinced without doubt, how we can come in full consciousness of Krishna, with our minds attached not to all the material paraphernalia that surround us, to be attached to Krishna. So that process is especially by hearing about Krishna. Because if we hear about Krishna, we get to realize how wonderful is, how Krishna is very great, how Krishna is the creator of the material universes, how is there dissolution as well. So we need to hear. And then in the second verse, Krishna is saying that he's going to tell us everything, actually, because everything that can be known is divided into two categories, the material and the spiritual. There is nothing else, actually. So therefore, I shall declare to you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal, material knowledge, and numinous, spiritual knowledge. There's nothing else. No? And this being known, nothing further shall remain for you to be known, because that's everything. So Krishna is going to explain about his potencies in material terms and also in spiritual terms. And that's everything, actually. There's nothing else. But the thing is that hardly anyone gets to understand this knowledge, actually. That's what Krishna is saying. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. Because endeavoring for perfection means to understand we're pure spirit soul, to get out of this material nature, which is not our natural place. And of those that have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So Krishna is very difficult to know. But now we're fortunate that Krishna is personally going to tell us about himself. Initially, about his potencies, his energies, because we are not on the platform where we have direct contact with Krishna. We have to begin from where we're at. You know, it's no good trying to pretend. You know, if you're looking around the room and there are no pictures of Krishna, we don't see Krishna, actually. But Krishna is present everywhere. And Krishna is going to tell us about that now, how he is present everywhere, through his material and spiritual potencies, how he's present everywhere. So the discussion begins then in text 4. Those who know about Krishna are very rare. But Krishna is now going to tell us personally. When we start from where we're at on the material platform. And therefore Krishna starts with the material energy. And he says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, altogether these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Because Krishna has potencies in the material sphere, and he also has potencies in the spiritual sphere. And also there's something in between as well. That is a potency which is called Tatastha Shakti, sometimes covered by the material potencies, sometimes in the spiritual potencies. We're in between. So this is a brief analysis of the material nature. Actually, it's a summary study. And Prabhupada in the purport, I think, is saying that. There are actually 24 elements of the material nature. But this is a summary study here, because Krishna just wants to give an outline. This is the material nature. So things we understand, things we can reach out and touch, earth, water, fire, air. mind, intelligence, false ego. Of course, you can't touch those, but we know we have them. You tell your friend, my mind is made up. So we know we have a mind. And today, you know, I'm understanding these things with my intelligence is very sharp this morning. I can understand these things. So with our intelligence and mind, we know we have. The false ego is a bit more subtle, harder to understand. That is, I think I'm this body. That is a false identity. So these are all material things which make up what we see when we open our eyes and we look at the world. But then also in the next verse we see that Krishna is explaining there's another energy, because the material energy on its own cannot be animated. It requires something to animate it. It's dead. You don't find that your dining room table gets up and walks away on its own. It can't do that, because things can only move in the material sphere if they're motivated by the spiritual nature. And therefore Krishna says, besides these, material energy on one side, there's another superior energy of mind, superior nature. Material nature is inferior, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. That's what we're doing, because we are superior nature. So when the superior nature, when something superior comes into contact with something inferior, what happens? If you have some understanding of that, you can open your mute and you can tell me what you think. When that which is superior comes into contact with that which is inferior, what happens? Yes, Kirtika.
So it can be two things. The inferior nature will transform into superior, or the superior gets contaminated.
Well, the superior, actually, that which is superior wants to control that which is inferior. Isn't that usually the case? If something is superior and something is inferior, the superior wants to control the inferior. Isn't it true?
Yes.
It's a lot, actually, in everyday life. So that is why Krishna says here that we, the living entities who are superior nature, are trying to control and exploit this material nature, because we're superior by nature. So this is, Krishna is just very, very quickly has just given it. There's this inferior nature, and there is the superior nature, which is us, the living entities. We're spiritual. And then in text 6, all created beings have their sources in these two natures. We are created beings, isn't it? Aren't we created beings? So we have a source, the spiritual, we're spirit soul, but also we have a source in the material as well. Two parents are required. You know, they have to get together to make this material body. So we, as living entities, have our source in these two natures, in the material nature and the spiritual nature. You know, when the conception takes place, then a particular spirit soul becomes associated with that body. And then at 7 months in the womb, then that soul comes to consciousness. So we have our source in these two natures, the spiritual nature and the material nature. And of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, there is spiritual where the living entities is material. It's been given by Krishna a little bit in the fourth verse. Know for certain that I am the origin and the dissolution. Krishna is the origin of these material worlds, actually. Not directly, expands himself. And eventually those expansions come to a personality called Mahavishnu. He is the source of this material world. And he impregnates the living entities into this material world. So he's the source. And then also when Mahavishnu decides, okay, he's going to breathe in now, then everything becomes dissolved, dissolution. So this is what Krishna is saying. He is the source and he's also the dissolution. And then in 7, this is 2 days ago, your verse. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Because these things are not easy to understand. Therefore, simile is given. Krishna gives a simile to help us understand. It's interesting because you can see my Kanti Mala, no? So this one is a little old. There may be some gaps. Oh, Prem is saying, my wife's saying there's no gaps. But if you have a string of pearls, and they're not cheapo, they're actually a nice string of pearls, then you will find that the pearls are there, but you can't see the thread. Isn't it true? You see the string of pearls, but you can't see the string, because the pearls are set in such a way, if it's a high-class string of pearls, you won't see it. Yeah, you see she's holding up. Kirtika is holding up. Can you see the thread? Can't see the thread. But we know the thread must be there. If there's no thread, what would happen? Yes, exactly. Kitika is showing like this. It would fall apart. So in this way, Krishna is explaining to us, he is there in everything, actually. One name of Krishna is Vasudev. It means one is present everywhere. There is no place, either spiritual or material, where Krishna is not present. And he's maintaining everything. Not only in the last verse he was saying the creation and the dissolution, but Krishna is also maintaining everything, actually. That's a difficult service. That's why Krishna does it himself. So there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon P as pearls are strung on a thread. And is anything left out of everything? When we say everything, is anything left out? No. So Krishna is saying that I'm holding everything together, actually, by my potencies. Not only the creation and the dissolution, but also everything. So we're beginning to see now, we're beginning to understand some things about Krishna, because Krishna is telling us himself, actually, knowledge of the absolute. Then we come to yesterday's verse. Now you see, Krishna is present everywhere and maintaining everything. So with a little careful consideration, with a little intelligence, we can begin to see that if we know how to look. So now Krishna is beginning to tell us, these are the ways you can look at the material nature and you can see my presence. So this is the verse you did yesterday. Rasa hung up Kuntiya. I turned 2 pages. O son of Kunti, I am the taste in water. No? Taste in water is a very special thing. Actually, it is the taste in water that we appreciate when we take water to quench our thirst. And if we mix with salt, then that original taste is kind of corrupted, it's lost. So that original taste in water, the taste in water, Krishna says, I am that taste. That ability of water to quench your thirst, that's Krishna, actually. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. Actually, without the sun and the moon, nothing is possible. The sun, without the sun, actually, absolutely life would be impossible without the sun. That sun is actually the reflection of the Brahmajyoti, but it is Krishna. The light of the sun is Krishna. And also the sun is heating, and the moon is cooling. And the moon also gives the taste in vegetables. The taste we appreciate, that is given by the moon. You know, so there's cooling, that is the moon, and there's heating. So both these are actually Krishna, the light of the sun and the moon. The syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, I don't know if you know, but when we look into Veda, we find that every mantra begins with Om. Without Om, there is no mantra, actually. That is Krishna. In an impersonal way, that is the presence of Lord Krishna everywhere. And the Veda is full of mantras which all start with Om. So there can be no Vedic mantras without Krishna. So Krishna is the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. And the sound in ether. Actually, something is required that sound can propagate. So ether is required. No? So the sound, the original sound which we get in ether, that is also Krishna. And the ability in man. You know, a man is so clever, you know, so many things can be done. But that ability which man has to do things, that is Krishna. So Krishna is showing us in these verses up to the point we studied previously, this is how you can see me in the material nature. And if we remember this verse now, you'll never see the sun in quite the same way again. When you see the sun and the moon now, you remember this verse. Where Krishna says, I am the light of the sun and the moon. The syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, the ability in man, the taste in water. So when we look at the material nature, this is how we can begin to see Krishna. Because Krishna is present everywhere. But we don't have the eyes to see that because we are contaminated by the material nature. So Krishna is starting where we're at. You know, sometimes in psychology they say that. Or if you're a teacher, you know that it's no good trying to teach the student above the level of the student's understanding. You've got to begin where the student is at and work from that point and go forward. So that is what Krishna is doing with us. We see the material nature. So therefore Krishna is saying, you can see me in this material nature. Because after all, the material nature is Krishna's potency. It's one of Krishna's diverse energies. So if we have the right vision, we can actually see Krishna in the material nature. So Krishna is starting where the student is at, where we're at. We see the material nature. So this is how we can see Krishna. So in today's verse, I am the original fragrance of the earth. You know, because you can plant in the earth, you can plant a mango seed or you can plant a neem seed. When the mango comes out, it tastes very sweet. And when the neem comes out, I actually make a sabji with that in India. It's called neem aloo. Or sometimes you make neem begun, you know. It's very nice, actually. It's very good for the body as well. You know, the neem is very good for blood for purification. And if you're a little advanced in spiritual taste, you like the bitter preparations. No? So it's the same earth that the seed is planted in, the same earth. But one seed comes out with sweet flavor like mango, and another comes out with a bitter flavor. So they're getting that from the original fragrance of the earth. The earth contains all those original fragrances. And, you know, all kinds of, even the flowers, you know, some flowers are dead flesh imitators. They want to attract the insects so that they will get fertilized. So they imitate the smell of dead flesh. And other flowers, they imitate the very, very nice fragrance to attract the bee. Come and take some of my nectar, and also you pollinate me while you're doing that. So the original fragrance of the earth gives rise to so many fragrances, good, bad, and indifferent. No? So Krishna is the original fragrance of the earth. The heat and fire. If you have fire with no heat, is it any use? Is it any use? No. We're interested in fire, but the light is also coming from the fire. We're interested in fire because of its heat, its ability to do so many things. No, you can't even eat without fire, actually, because in your stomach there's the fire of digestion. No, so even without fire, you can. And if you touch your body or somebody else's, of course, in the present climate, you have to make sure they don't have COVID. But if you touch somebody else's body, you'll find it's warm. So why is that? That's because there's fire. It doesn't look, I mean, it's not like a naked flame, but there is fire in the body. You know, otherwise, how are you warm? How can you digest? So Krishna is saying that I am that fire. And the life of all that lives. Can you live without life? You can live without life, actually. Krishna is that life. So what we're seeing here, and the penances of the ascetics. Actually, there's no such thing as an ascetic without penance. That's what an ascetic is. An ascetic performs penance. So if there is no penance, then there's no such thing as an ascetic. So Krishna is educating us that he's the governing principle behind everything, actually. It doesn't matter where you look. And there's 2 more verses after this one. I'm not going to get into that because it'll spoil tomorrow's class for you. But wherever we look in the material nature, we see that Krishna is behind everything. Just as pearls on a string on a thread. You can't see, but Krishna is there. Because otherwise, how is everything working? Okay, so we'll read purport. Punya means that which is not decomposed. Punya is original. Everything in the material world has a certain flavor or fragrance, just as the flavor and fragrance in a flower, or in the earth, or in water, or in fire, or in air, etc. Everything is recognized by its fragrance, actually. Everything has a certain taste and a certain fragrance. So the principle behind that is Lord Krishna. Wherever we see there's fragrance or taste, then it must be Krishna, because he is the original fragrance. He gives the fragrance to everything. The uncontaminated flavor, the original flavor from which all the other flavors are coming. Sorry, I lost my place now. Original flavor, which permeates everything, is Krishna. And we see this over and over again, actually, that whenever we consider anything, actually, there's another discussion of this in the 10th chapter, where Krishna expands this discussion. It's called the vibhutis, actually, Krishna's manifest potencies. And again, in the 10th chapter, it explained them in all kinds of ways that we can understand by looking at the material nature, or through different kinds of persons or groups of persons. So here we're just getting a look-see. Krishna is just giving us a little bit, you know, that if you want to see me, you can even see me in the material nature, if your intelligence and mind is tuned in a certain way. And in the beginning, it's an intellectual understanding, you know, Krishna says. But then after some time, you know, we can actually look, when we practice the spiritual process, we can actually look and we can understand Krishna is there. The light of the sun, the moon, the ability in man, the syllable arm in the Vedic mantras, the taste in water. After some time when we practice, we'll really appreciate it. But in the beginning, it's intellectual. But that's how it has to start, because we don't see Krishna. So it begins with intellectual understanding. We become convinced by what Krishna is saying. So the sun is an incredible body, it pours out an incredible amount of energy. So we can look at it like that and we think, wow, and that's even just the reflected potency of the Brahman, of the Brahmajyoti. So we can, in the beginning, it's intellectual, and then it grows, and we'll actually see Krishna in the end. But in the beginning, we have to look with our intelligence and realize, that actually, when we look at the order of the world, how things are going on, it's just so amazing. You can understand there must be an intelligence behind that. I'll give you an example. When we want to distribute water, what we need, first of all, is a place where the water is. Then we've got to collect the water and we've got to purify it. And then we've got to pump it to different places. And you need tubes for that. You need pipes and tubes, and then you turn on your tap and the water comes out. Have you ever considered Krishna's distribution system for water? Have you ever considered? First of all, the water is in a situation where there's an element which keeps it pure. Like we call that salt. The salt keeps the water from being contaminated. And then the sun comes along and it evaporates the water. And then when the water rises, actually it cools, and the water vapor then becomes little droplets of water in a cloud. And then the cloud is blown by the wind and it comes over the earth. And because it comes over the earth, it rises and the water droplets condense into rain and it falls on the earth. It's amazing. And then when the water's fallen on the earth, it comes into rivers. Eventually, it goes back into the sea. That is Krishna's water distribution system. And it's incredible. It rains everywhere. So no one is short of water. So when we see that arrangement, we can understand this is such an incredible intelligence. Or another way we can look at it, we can take, it's like just a few days ago, we bought some nectarines, So within the nectarine is a stone. And inside the stone is a seed. And if you plant that seed, you will get a nectarine tree. And on the nectarine tree, there are so many nectarines when it grows to its full potency. So many nectarines on the tree. And in each nectarine is a seed. And in the seed is a tree. And in that tree, there are so many nectarines. I mean, that's a pretty amazing arrangement. It just goes on its own. Even we don't touch it, it just goes on. Some will fall, some nectarines will fall off the tree, they'll rot, and the stone will split open and you'll get another tree. It's an amazing arrangement. That is so much intelligence, to do that. Srila Prabhupada used to challenge the material scientists like that, He said, I challenge you, you make 1 grain of rice. Just make 1 grain of rice in your laboratory, or a mosquito. Now, mosquito is a pretty simple living entity. You just make me one mosquito or a grain of rice. Of course, they can't do it. They can't do it. For all their claims and all their intelligence, they can't do it. And yet Krishna arranges that if we don't pick the rice and mill it and turn it into, our butt on the table with it can actually grow into a plant which can give more rice grains. 1 seed of rice can grow into a rice plant, which will give you 20 or 30 rice grains. And if you take those rice grains and plant it, they give you another one, which give you. So this is Krishna's arrangement. So that requires such intelligence. You make this whole arrangement, then you step back and it looks after itself. So the point I'm making is if we have the eyes to see, we can understand there is arrangement behind everything. Everything is going on so nicely, actually, And we don't see Krishna running around planting rice grains. See that, no? It goes on automatically by Krishna's potency. Krishna's potency is there within the rice grain, and therefore it's able to propagate itself, unlimited, actually. Unlimitedly, that can go on. So Vishal got his hand up, so I'll ask him what he wants to say.
Hare Krishna. Sorry to interrupt, but...
Don't be sorry. I don't mind. Some class givers don't like it, but I don't mind it at all, actually. We are here to discuss Krishna together. So if you interrupt me, I don't mind.
One of the things that's occurred to me as I'm going through this chapter is Krishna describes himself in Maya, using the 3 gunas, Rajas, Sattva, Tamas, and everything else that originates. He describes himself in such a way that all the energies are his.
Yes.
But then when you talked about the sun and the food and the rice, then actually I'm trying to break it down to the original energy where I could recognize him in day-to-day life. And it's suddenly occurring to me that everything's coming out of sacrifice. So that sun is burning at millions of degrees of temperature, heat. It's burning itself to keep my body temperature at 37 whatever degrees. That wind, the rain, everything is born out of sacrifice. So perhaps selfless sacrifice, is that where I'm trying to find Krishna then, in that pure energy?
Anything which is manifest must have a source, isn't it? And okay, so we can say the rain coming from the clouds. We can say like that, no? But
what about the negative stuff we see around us? Is that, it can't be Krishna's energy, can it?
Yes, it can, but it's being misused. Everything is Krishna's energy, actually. But when it comes in a form which is evil, it means it's being misused. But that's our free will. Because Krishna wants us to choose to love him, and therefore he gives free will. The only problem with free will is it can get you into trouble. Right? We all know that from our lives, no? We make choices which we think are good choices, and they get us into trouble. So the only problem with free will is it can get you into trouble. But if we look behind everything, actually, if we delve more deeply into scripture, we find that it's described there as an immediate cause and a remote cause. Just like, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but sometimes scorpions emerge from rice. I don't know if you've ever seen that. But actually, the eggs of the scorpion, they look like rice grains. So some people say, just see, the scorpion is coming from the rice. That is the immediate cause, but the remote cause is the scorpion's eggs. And even behind that, there's another cause. Because how is it that a scorpion can lay an egg and it will grow into a scorpion? How is that possible? So if we keep going, we'll find it's Sarvakarana Karanam, which is Krishna.
Gotcha,
Krishna is Sarvakarana Karanam. He's the cause of all causes. There are causes and causes and causes. Krishna is behind all of them, actually.
So even the negative energies we see from others emanating towards us, we can surrender those to Krishna as well.
Yeah, we can.
Right.
We can.
Yeah. Okay.
We can actually do that. So this is the training we have to have from Krishna, to look at things and understand that there is an immediate cause and there is a remote cause. And the remote cause is Krishna in every case. The immediate cause is the fragrance of the flower. But where does the fragrance come from? And Krishna is saying here it's the original fragrance of the earth. So where does that come from? That actually comes from Krishna. Krishna creates that, so that you can get so many different aromas and flavors and tastes. So this is what Krishna is trying to show us. I am behind everything, just as pearls are strung on a thread. We don't see the thread, but without the thread, everything will fall apart. Is it all right, Vishal?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So we go on with the purport. Similarly, everything has a particular original taste, and this taste can be changed by the mixture of chemicals. So everything originally has some smell, some fragrance, and some taste. And that's coming from Krishna. Ultimately, if we follow it back to its source, it's coming from Krishna. Vibhavshu means fire. Without fire, we cannot run factories, we cannot cook, etc. And that fire is Krishna. Again, it's immediate cause and remote cause. We strike a match and we can light the fire. But where did the fire come from originally? How is that possible? So it's remote cause and immediate cause. Our problem is we only see the immediate cause. We see things, coming from the material nature. We don't realize that actually behind that there is a remote cause. There's something behind that which is causing it to happen. So Krishna is described like that by Lord Brahma. He says Krishna is Sarvakarana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. If you trace it back, you will find that Krishna is behind that. Krishna is behind everything. So the heat in the fire is Krishna. According to Vedic medicine, indigestion is due to a low temperature in the belly. Actually, if we want to delve a little more into that, actually the temperature in your stomach has to be higher than the outside temperature. Otherwise, you can't digest. There's no difference then. There's no fire to digest with. So that's what happens when we get indigestion. The fire in the stomach goes down, and there's not enough difference in temperature between your stomach and the outside world that you can actually digest. So when you give an Ayurvedic medicine for that, it raises the stomach. So my wife knows about that. One thing you can do when your fire of digestion is not very high is,
Chilies.
see, did you hear my wife's analysis of that? She said you can eat chilies because chilies raise the fire of digestion. My wife knows that because she likes chili with her meals. We won't get too much into that. So even the digestion fire is needed. In Krishna consciousness, we become aware that earth, water, fire, air, and every active principle, all chemicals and material elements are due to Krishna. So Prabhupada has gone to the remote cause, the Sarva Karana Karanam. In the ultimate analysis, everything is coming from Krishna. And we may not get that in the beginning, but if we're Sankhites, if we analyze, if we use the Sankhya philosophy and we analyze, okay, now this is this. Where is this coming from? What is the cause of that? And we trace it back. In truth, we will always come to the Supreme Personality of Godhead's energies. We will always come like that. Therefore, it is by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. Because Krishna says in this verse, I am the life of all that lives. If you want to extend your life, it requires Krishna's blessing, actually. And also, if you diminish your life, that requires Krishna's intervention as well. So Krishna is not kidding. Krishna is maintaining us, actually. The remote cause is Krishna. The immediate cause is that your soul is suspended in the body by 5 kinds of life airs. So where are those life airs coming from? Again, we go back, we find it's Krishna. So wherever you look, this is what Krishna, the training Krishna is giving us. You're looking, Krishna is saying, at the material nature. But if you analyze that material nature, you'll find I'm behind it, just as pearls are strung on a thread. So Krishna is educating us from where we're at. Krishna wants us to understand his potency, not because he's trying to show off, but so that we can understand Krishna is there behind everything. Krishna is maintaining us in so many ways. So if somebody is maintaining you, how do you feel about that person? How does a wife feel about a husband, or an employee feel about his employer?
Oh, I don't know about loving an employee.
We don't necessarily love them, but we feel some gratitude. No?
Gratitude.
So what can we say about a person who's maintaining us in all respects? Even, he's making your heart beat, he's making your digestion work, he's making you breathe in at certain intervals and breathe out. He's making your eyes work. Everything you're doing is being maintained by Krishna. So therefore, what should we feel towards that personality? There should be at least some gratitude. Now, it begins there. So this is how Krishna is helping us to form a relationship with him. That if we understand Krishna is behind the life that we're living, the taste in water, the light of the sun and the moon, the breathing that's going on, the blood pumping that's going on, the digestion of my supper, all these things that are going on. Well, you may not have, today we're fasting actually, so nothing's in my stomach. But normally at this time you'd be digesting your supper. So all these things, Krishna wants us to understand that I am behind it, so that we begin to feel some gratitude. Our relationship with Krishna is born. We begin to understand Krishna is there. Knowledge of the absolute. Can you understand? Knowledge that the absolute is everywhere and doing everything. He is the remote cause. So we're like, oh, really? Krishna is behind everything. So this way our relationship begins to grow. This is how it starts. Actually, Krishna is beginning from where we're at. He's educating us. I am behind everything in the material nature. So therefore, by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. So Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere. Actually, we'll get more of a sense of this in the 10th chapter. In the 10th chapter, Krishna expands it. We've just got a few here, maybe 15, 20, how Krishna manifests in the material nature. In the 10th chapter, Krishna expands that understanding into 72 vibhutis, 72 ways that you can understand Krishna is present behind this material nature, making everything tick. So this is how Krishna is trying to educate us, knowledge of the absolute. You can see me if you have the eyes, if you have the training to see me. It's just like, I don't know if you've seen these ink blot pictures that psychologists use. They put one of these ink blot pictures in front of you and they look at you and they say, what can you see? And from what you see, the psychologist can tell something about you. I wonder if I've got that picture. I want to just try and find this picture. Oh, I don't know when. Actually, in the next class we have, I'll bring you this picture. It's a line drawing. I forget the name of the artist. But in this line drawing, actually, two things are visible simultaneously. There are a young lady and an old lady simultaneously in the picture. And when you initially look at the picture, because your brain can't see both of them at once. So when you look at the picture, you either see the old lady or the young lady. And when you're looking at one, you have to kind of make the switch to see the other one. No? And initially, actually, IBM used to train their business executives using this picture. They would separate the executive into two groups, and they'd show the picture with an emphasis on the young girl. So when the executives look at it, they'd all see the young girl. And then the other group, they would put the emphasis, they would draw the picture in such a way as to show the emphasis on the old lady. So all the executives saw the old lady. And then they would show the original picture, and they would have all the executives come together in the same room, and they would ask a question. They would say, would you like to date this lady? And then the executives would begin to squabble. They'd say, no, this is a young girl. So yes, I'd like to date her. And the other executives said, this is an old lady. Why would you want to date her? Like that. And then after some time, after some disagreement between the executives, then they would point out that both the young lady and the old lady are present in the same picture. And why they would train their executives like that, they wanted to show them that two people can look at the same situation, see differently, and they can both be right. Which if you're training your executives, you have to develop that kind of mentality in them. So we have that problem. We're looking at the material nature and we're seeing the old lady, just for the sake of argument. No? We're seeing a certain thing. We think, yeah, it's just the material nature, It's just the elements doing their thing. And Krishna is trying to educate us. Yes, that's there, but there's also something else as well. There's my potency behind it. So this is how Krishna is training us, actually, by showing us when you look at the material nature, this is what you see. But actually, everything is held together like pearls strung on a thread. And that thread that you can't see, that is me. And I'm holding everything together. So these verses are so wonderful, actually, in that respect, because Krishna is taking us from the level we're at when we see the material nature, and Krishna is raising us to a higher platform. You understand that the spiritual nature is there. That is me, and I'm behind everything. Like Prabhupada says, last line of the purport, so Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere. Krishna is present everywhere. Vasudev, one who's present everywhere. So this is the wonderful way that Krishna is training Arjuna, and also Arjuna is just playing his role. Krishna is training us to see Krishna everywhere, because that's Krishna's final instruction, actually. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's final instruction is engage your mind in always thinking about me. So in order to do that, we have to understand where to look to see Krishna. Krishna is busily training us little by little, actually, starting with where we're at. So we've got a few minutes left. I want to know if there are questions or comments or realizations.
Prabhuji, till Hare Krishna, till everybody is thinking about something. So why have, so it's really not fair, because I feel that, so we are the spiritual being, and then we are put into this material world.
Yeah, not fair, is it? How can Krishna do something like that?
I mean, either we should have just been material or spiritual.
Spiritual.
In between, we now are a hybrid, and we don't know where we belong.
Yeah. So Krishna is so unfair, how he can do that. The criminals in the prison house, they're also thinking like that. They're thinking, how unfair that the judge sent us to the prison house. So why were the criminals sent to the prison house by the judge? Why?
Because they did something wrong.
Yeah, they broke the law. They broke the law, actually. They misused their independence, is what they've done wrong, actually. They have a certain independence, and they're the rules of society. So they have misused their independence, and therefore, in order to protect society from them, they've been removed to the prison house. So in the same way, actually, we have minute independence also. We can choose to love Krishna or not. And when we say, I'm kind of tired of loving this Krishna. Why can't I just do my own thing and be my own person? And Krishna says, fine. Only thing is you can't do that in the spiritual world. You can't have a relationship with Krishna if you want to be independent. So we want to be independent. Krishna says, okay, there's a place you can go. It's down there. But the only problem with that place is everybody else is independent as well, and they're competing with you. So it's actually our choice. It's the misuse of our independence which brings us in. And the crime that we've committed is we think we can enjoy separate from Krishna. So, Kirtika, I'd like to ask you, how is that working for you?
So I'm still wondering. So when we were in the spiritual world with Krishna, he gave us everything. He loved us, and there was no reason why we should be thinking about enjoying without him, because in any guna we were reciprocated, because that's what we have learned, that he
Yes.
So
And any intelligent person comes to this question sooner or later. Since you're such a smart lady, I'm surprised you haven't asked it before. But this question will come to anyone who studies the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. Well, if we were in perfection and we were enjoying with Krishna in the spiritual, how come we came here? So Prabhupada, the standard answer is the one I gave you. We'll go a little deeper. The standard answer that Prabhupada would give is that we have independence, and we've become aware of it, and we've misused it. And that's why we've come here. And devotees would push Prabhupada that, okay, it's not a very satisfactory, it's true, but it's not a very satisfactory answer. So tell us more, what's the real thing? So when Prabhupada was questioned in that way, he would say the reason for our falling into this material nature is there in the spiritual world. And until we go there, we won't be able to understand how that happened. This was the other answer that Prabhupada would give. That our fall down came from the spiritual world, from our misuse of independence. But since we're covered by the material nature and we don't have knowledge of that, we won't be able to understand that here. But another way of looking at this is what Krishna says is once you go there, you never return. Because having fallen, when you go back there, then everything will become very clear to you and you'll never again make that mistake. So this is how Prabhupada, it's the best I can do, Kirtika. I don't know if it satisfies you.
Yeah, I'm understanding it, and I've been thinking about it since 3 or 4 days, and what I feel is it is like a lotus, and therefore when I see in lots of our pictures, there's lotus depicted everywhere. It grows in mud.
In mud.
But it is staying away from the mud, and it's still beautiful.
Yes. And actually, if we examine deeply, it's not touched by the water.
Yes.
Know that? Not touched, because the leaves and the flowers of the lotus have a waxy surface. If you pour water onto a lotus flower or lotus leaf, the water will run off.
Yeah.
It's not touched. This is why the lotus is used as a simile.
Yeah.
Spiritual things, because it's not touched. Yeah. So the best I can do, this is what Prabhupada would say. When we go there, we'll understand and we'll think, what an idiot I was. Why did I do that? And we'll never actually come here again. So it's the misuse of our independence. In the same way that a criminal misuses independence and winds up in the prison house. It's a similar principle. Is it all right?
Yes, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Prana Hari Das Prabhuji has a question.
Okay, Prana Hari Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for your time and lecture. My question is that, as Mataji also mentioned, that we were devotee of Krishna before we came to the material world.
Actually, we're all devotees of Krishna. It's just that some people know it and some people don't.
Okay. So my question is that why it takes so much time to awaken that dormant relationship with Krishna? I mean, so where is exactly, like for me yourself, it's taken a long, actually, 30 years plus, that I came, after that, I came to the Krishna consciousness. So, and there's some are who start at the very, beginning. So where exactly this problem happened, the relationship which you talked about earlier, actually?
Yeah, sure. This is a conundrum. And this is a really serious problem. The thing is, because we're minute, we're spiritual nature, but we're described as animal, very tiny. And the material nature is Krishna's potency. So therefore he says it's Duratyaya. You can't overcome it, actually, because it's Krishna's potency. we need assistance to overcome that. We need the support of Krishna and his devotees to overcome it, you know. So therefore, when we come covered by the material nature, we develop so many attachments, you know. And those attachments actually, this is one of my all-time favorite Srila Prabhupada quotes, such it comes in the 4th canto. And Prabhupada is saying there, you know, that we shouldn't get upset with the living entities who are materially, you know, covered up by the material nature. He said, rather, we should be very merciful to them, because without the assistance of a devotee, there is no way out of this material nature. You can't do it on your own, actually. So when we begin to think in a certain way, you know, when we begin to question, actually, that's what suffering is for. You know, when suffering comes and we begin to question, why is this suffering? I don't want this suffering. Why is it there? And begin to question in this way, then spiritual thinking begins. You know, but the thing is, then we're still attached to the material nature. So this is why it takes time, you know, that we're attached. We got some spiritual progress, but then again, we become attached in so many ways. So what Krishna does is he waits for the perfect moment in the current life. He waits for a time when you're questioning. And then again, he comes and knocks on your door. So, are you ready to make some more progress? But the thing about that is we're still attached to the material nature. So we perform something called Mishra Bhakti. We do a little bit of devotional service and we do some material stuff as well. You know, mostly material. We do this much service and this much material. And that's how we go on. So the thing is, because of our attachments, that is what stops the spiritual progress, actually, because of attachments. But luckily, Krishna is so merciful that he says in the 40th verse of the 2nd chapter that there is no loss and diminution. So whatever we have, we retain it. It may get covered up by our material attachments or our offenses, but eventually, again, it will be awakened. Krishna come knocking on the door. You get a book, you meet a devotee. And Krishna is saying to us, so, are you ready? You want to make more progress? Where are you at? What do you want to do? So this is how it goes on. That is why it's difficult, because we're so attached to the material nature. Because we want to enjoy it. Actually is a spiritual thing. It comes from the soul, desire. And we are ananda by nature. So we want to enjoy, but we don't have the connection of Krishna. So therefore it comes out in the material nature. We want to enjoy in this material nature. And Prabhupada says we're running around like mad people. We're crazy to that material enjoyment. So this is what holds us back. So when I say these things, how does it sound to you?
Yeah, thank you very much. And another question I have is basically that related to this only, that why then people come to the Krishna consciousness or the with the God consciousness and they live in between, you know, they left this, yeah.
Yeah, why is that? How crazy is that? Actually, there are two reasons why, if someone comes to Krishna consciousness and takes up the practice to some extent, it's explained there are two reasons why that person might go away. The first reason is Krishna's special arrangement. So how often do you think that happens?
Very rare.
Yes, very rare. The other reason is offenses. The other reason is offenses, especially if we commit offenses to Krishna's devotees. Krishna doesn't like that, actually. If Krishna has brought us to the association of devotees, which is our saving grace and our only way that we can make spiritual progress. And then if you abuse those devotees, if you criticize those devotees, you find fault with those devotees, at some point Krishna will say, no. My devotees are so exalted, they're so wonderful. They're distributing my mercy to people in this material world. How dare you abuse them and misuse them? So after some time, Krishna will arrange that you go away. Is that all right? Manasi, I think, Manasi, you wanted to say something. No? So wonderful to see you, Manasi Ganga. Please show yourself to me. Manasi Ganga Mataji.
Yeah, I was just trying to show you and also trying to kind of answer this question, which you did, that once I heard Srila Prabhupada saying, once we go to the spiritual world, we remember how nightmarish was the material
Yeah.
world. That's why we never come back.
Yeah, nice
No, I
point.
like
Very
that.
nice. Because Manasi, isn't this material world nightmarish? What do you think? Manasi,
Who are you asking? Me?
yes, isn't this
Yeah.
material world nightmarish? What do you think?
Oh my God, hellish. I mean, more than nightmare.
That's what I wanted you to say. That was a good
Yes.
answer. OMG. Yes. Thank you very much for that, Manoj. Very nice point. Thank you so much. So are we done? Is there more? Actually, this chapter is so nice because it's so easy to get realization from what Krishna is saying in this chapter. This is so nice, this 7th chapter. What do you think? And we're only on the 9th verse. We've got up to 30 to go. There's so much really nice verses in this chapter, actually. And so is there comment or realization or question, or should we dissolve?
No,
Yeah,
Prabhuji, there are questions. Pramila
Yeah.
Oh, there are
Mataji has a
questions.
question.
Okay, let's go then.
But before she asks a question, I'm bringing my attention back to the lotus analogy. So
Yes.
the waxy coat on the lotus is the association of the devotees that is protecting them
Yes.
from the material.
Yeah.
And the
Actually, the
stalk,
association of devotees is everything.
yeah, and the stalk that is holding on to the mud is the material nature. So you need to cut away. You need to get away from that so you can float. But
Yes. So
even if you're
15th
floating,
chapter,
you need
in
to.
the 15th chapter, we'll see that Krishna describes that. He tells us how to make an axe so that we can chop down the material nature. Detachment.
But we still will need the devotion, the association, because without that waxy coat, again, even if we drift, we will probably get
Get into trouble. Yeah, it's a very nice point you're making. Very nice analogy. Thank you very much. Yeah, the association of devotees is very nice. If we stay in the association of devotees, we will never get into trouble. Maya is strong, it is Krishna's potency, but the association of devotees is Krishna's internal potency. It's stronger than the material nature. So we should always, for this reason, stay in the association of devotees, and then we'll never have any problem.
Hare Krishna. Pramila Mataji has a question, and after that, Vishal Prabhuji will have a question.
Pramila,
Yes.
speak to us, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Pramila.
Very, very nice discourse today. I wanted to ask you, how much free will have we got?
How much do you want?
Not a lot, probably.
Yeah, because that free will gets us into all kinds of trouble. You know, Krishna never interferes with our free will. Do you know that? Krishna never interferes. And if you don't believe me, you can turn to, I think it's 1863. If you've got your Bhagavad Gita in front of you,
Yeah.
turn to 1863. Yeah, I know it's 1863, actually. So this is what Krishna says in 1863. He's explained the whole Bhagavad Gita, which is almost 700 verses. He's instructed Krishna's instructed Arjuna in everything and encouraged him to do the right thing. And then this is what he says. Thus I explained to you knowledge still more confidential, deliberated on it fully, and then do whatever you wish to do. So what is it show? Krishna interferes with our free will, actually. Never. You do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
How much free will do you want? That's my question. How much do you want? Prema?
Yes, I don't want a lot because I might be tempted to go the wrong
Yeah,
way.
exactly. So therefore, what must we do?
Yeah, so just stick to Krishna consciousness.
934 and 1865, 2 verses later. Engage your mind in always thinking of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. So it's also true for us. True for Arjuna. It's also true for us.
Thank
Engage
you.
your mind. Yeah, that's what we should do. And then the free will won't get us into trouble.
Okay, thanks.
Is that all right?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Vishal, you have your hand up, so we assume you want to share something with us.
Hare Krishna, it's me again.
It's okay.
Yeah, I was trying to marry together the spiritual and the material world from what the discussions have been talking about. So what Krishna says is see me in everything. So if we get to a level where we can break everything down to the fundamental string we ignore the pearls, then surely being in this material world, we could enjoy Krishna.
Yes, actually you can.
So that actually we don't want to distinguish between material and spiritual anymore. And that question doesn't arise why we even came down here, because
Actually,
everything becomes...
When the devotee becomes very advanced, that's what happens. And when we perform devotional service using material things, we actually transform them into Krishna's spiritual nature. So for a devotee, it doesn't matter where they are actually.
Yeah,
There was a sage and he was giving blessings to different kinds of people. And he saw a student who was living in the ashram of the guru. And he told him, you die now. Because he was living his life in a perfect way under the shelter of the guru. So that sage, he told the brahmachari, you die now, because you're in very good consciousness, you'll go back to the spiritual world. He saw a prince, and he told the prince, you better live forever. He told the prince that because he's enjoying very nicely, and when he dies, all that will go away. So he told the prince, you enjoy forever. And then he saw a butcher, and he told the butcher, don't live, don't die. No, because when he's living, he's killing animals, he's making bad karma. And if he dies, he's going to get the bad karma. So he told the butcher, don't live, don't die. And then he saw a devotee, a Vaishnava, and he looked at him and he said, you live, die, same thing, doesn't matter. Because when we come to that consciousness, actually, we see Krishna everywhere, actually. And we see Krishna's material nature as Krishna as well, actually, because after all, it's his potency. But you have to be on a very high platform to see like that. We have to practice to get to that platform. But your analysis is correct, actually.
Hare Krishna, I remember you telling us this last week, and it really sunk in, and then nothing matters because you're just enjoying nectar.
Yeah, but are you enjoying nectar, or are you being kicked around by the material nature? That's my question to you. What's going on in your life?
You've got to see him in everything and total surrender, then actually you will enjoy nectar if you are connected to Krishna.
Yes, that's true. But that comes about through revelation. When Krishna is satisfied with our endeavor to become a devotee, Krishna will reveal to you. So at
the moment we're doing this.
Yes. Yeah, we're doing that. Thank you for your wonderful questions and comments. I so much appreciate you for sharing.
Krishna, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, are we done then?
Are there any other questions?
Or comments, or realizations?
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Hare Krishna, Pata
Prabhuji.
Prem Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna for your wonderful class. We are so appreciative, Prabhu. So one doubt is here in your discussion today. Krishna told in Bhagavad Gita, Jadgatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. So why is the devotees there, and why is the question of free will? They misuse the independence, then again come back to here in the material world.
So I'm not sure I understand the question.
So Krishna told, who is entered in my abode, he never coming back.
Here, yes.
Yes, okay.
Manisi Ganga explained that so nicely, I thought. I gave one explanation, Manisi Ganga, she gave another explanation. She said, it's like when you have a bad dream. Let's say you have a nightmare, you're being chased by a tiger, right? Now in the dream, do you think it's real?
Yes.
Patra, I'm asking you, Prabhu. Patra,
yes, Prabhu, yes.
You think it's real, but then you wake up from the dream, and what do you feel? Do you want to go back to the dream again?
No.
No, well, you're relieved, actually. Phew, thank goodness. It's just a dream. So that's how we feel when we go back to the spiritual world. Thank goodness. And Manasi Ganga Mataji explained it so nicely. She said, you'll realize how nightmarish it is. And you think, my goodness, I never want to go there again. Like if you dream about the tiger chasing you, will you ever want to dream that again?
Mm-hmm.
You'll never want to dream about the tiger chasing you. Never. No.
Yes.
So that she explained it so nicely, I thought. Is that
but the thing, yes, Prabhuji, but the thing is that if you're a devotee and we are in abode, in spiritual abode, there is no question of free will and misuse the independent. So how it comes?
Because, yeah, this is what we're trying to explain. Even Srila Prabhupada, gave this explanation to try and satisfy the devotees because it seems innocuous. How is that possible? If we were joining in pure prema bhakti, how is it possible? So the answer is it's a misuse of our free will. And in this place, we can't completely understand that because the reason for our fall down is in the spiritual world. And we're here in the material world. So Prabhupada said, you will only understand that fully when you go back to the spiritual world. That was his answer. I can't do any better than that, Prabhu. No, I'm sorry. When you go back to the spiritual world, you will understand. And I think that'll be in your case, PDQ, pretty damn quick, you know. If you go back, you can put in a good word for me.
Oh.
You can put in a good word for me when you go back. Is that all right? It's the best I can do, Pata Premji.
Yes.
Ganga's going to help us out now.
To this?
Go for it.
Not help us out. I'm just thinking we could add a little. Now, while I'm trying to get your attention, this is called old age, short-term memory loss. Srila Prabhupada explains, can you imagine? I just lost the point. It was the point to answer part. Give me a second to get back my thoughts. I'm trying to clean the beans for making stir fry. So you can see my mind is all over the place. No, this thing, how we come to from the, oh yeah, I got my point. Right. In the bank, Srila Prabhupada's example, when somebody is counting the money, they're counting actually for the bank, not their own money. Millions and millions. But the day their consciousness changes and they think, why can't I get a little bit out of this? Is how in the spiritual world, we just think, why can't I enjoy? And Krishna is there. He knows your consciousness. Okay, this is not like you said. It's not the place for independence. So go where you will get your independence and try to see how much you can enjoy. You know, so this
it's
bank
a very nice example.
Yeah, so
very nice
that's
example.
What pure consciousness, because we are weak ultimately anyways.
Yeah.
Right?
So nice, Manasi Ganga. Thank you very much. It's also explained in another way that, you know, we are turned towards Krishna in the spiritual world, no? But the moment we turn away from Krishna, then Maya immediately grabs us like that. Grabs us because she's the shadow of the chit potency. She immediately grabs us. The moment we use our independence, we turn away from our consciousness in Krishna, then Maya grabs us. But I thought Manasi Ganga Mataji's example is so nice. Millions and millions of dollars, and the moment you want to take one for yourself, then you're in trouble. Does it help, Pata Prem Prabhu? Does it help?
Yes, Prabhuji. It means there is a risk also spiritual world.
Sorry?
It means there is a risk also in the spiritual world.
Yes, the risk is there. But if you've had the nightmare, will you want it again?
Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, you won't. If you've understood that nightmare, you won't. So this is why Krishna assures in many places in Bhagavad Gita, once having gone there, you will never return. See?
This is the camp. This is like we've been sent to rehab here.
Yes, rehab. Yeah, rehab, definitely. Yeah.
Also the fact when we go, the prison house are meant for reformation, punishment plus reformation. So those who are wise, once they go to a prison house, they don't want to go back again. They have been reformed. So our consciousness coming into the material world is for our own reformation. Punishment plus reformation. So that's why when we get back, Tadhama Paramam, then when we get back, we know I don't want to go to the prison house again.
We have been
reformed, lived there.
And therefore we don't have the desire anymore. Actually, look at that. That this material world is a place for those who are learning to become devotees again. That's what it's meant for, actually.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for nice explanation. Also, thank you very much, Manasi Ganga Mataji. Yes.
Prabhuji, let's close the session. It is now 6.
Yes. Its time is over. So I request, please unmute all the devotees. They are assembled here. Please unmute yourself. And glorification of His Grace, Shyamanand Krishna Prabhu. Please chant Hare Krishna mantra once. So please join. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpa tarubhashya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srila
Kali
Prabhu.
Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai. His Grace Shyamanand Krishna Prabhu ki jai.
Yay.